Hi everyone, Comic Reviewer here. This time reviewing on Spider-Gwen issue number 3. Now, as you know, like I said before in the last review I just did, that it is a 5-issue miniseries that would later go on to go for a more bigger series. And the cover has Spider-Gwen on top of a phone pole, while basically the Punisher Skull logo looks on at her. And the story mainly starts off how Captain Stacy is boarding a train and heading to Forest Hills, where he meets his neighbor Ben Parker and says, Gwen, are you home? And pretty much he does get a little annoyed with Gwen for calling her out on having a costume in the house where people can see her. And you can tell he's justifiably understandable, saying that if the Wolf and Frank Castle saw them, they would pretty much throw the book at them. And that he does say, look, I did everything I could, but the bosses won't listen. Your case is out of my hands. You just can't, Gwen. You can't be Spider-Woman anymore. And pretty much Gwen points out that, she can't, that Spider-Woman is who she is, and that she says, how do I live with myself then, Dad? And he does point out that you don't have anything to try and prove, and also saying that, everything else. And he does have a flashback to what happened to Peter Parker, and he does say, look, I looked into Peter's eyes, Dad. I felt his heart break. And you can tell that, he says, you're my daughter and I do trust you in that. So, of course, as they do talk, and that George Stacy does point out that, he does love her and that, despite being a superhero, her spider sense kicks in, which, of course, ends up with her version of the Vulture breaking in. And pretty much Gwen tries to get her dad to wake up, and the Vulture pretty much fills the room with green gas, and pretty much Gwen decides to put on her costume, even though this would put 2 to 2 together, and she says, you're no match for my tiger style. Spider-Woman! Guess who? And pretty much the gas fills up, and turns out it's causing her to cough and that. And even him point out that Osborn stole his work, and that the gas is a metaphor for the people who have leached off of him. And pretty much George Stacy manages to shoot the Vulture in the arm, and does try to make a break for it. Gwen goes to see if her father's alright, and George Stacy says, no, Gwen, you can't. There's no way no one called in the police. I won't let you risk it. And he knows that full well that if Gwen is exposed, she could go to prison, and that he could lose his daughter. And so Gwen basically heads out, even though Ben kind of saw her. So of course, Vulture tries to get a police car by chucking out one of the police officers, and this is a moment that you can tell Gwen Stacy tries to take on the Vulture, and she does realise to her stupidity that she exposed herself, and that if the Vulture found out her identity, it could be a problem. So as the gas comes forth, we do see Frank Castle in his Punisher costume. And even when the person on the voice comm, if he needs backup, you can tell he does this like a hunter and prefers to do it alone, even though it's a bit of a costly mistake. And so Frank manages to shock Spider-Woman, and just as she's knocked out, he unmasks her and finds out it's a kid, and she says, yeah, that's right, I'm just a girl. And so, after basically taking out Frank Castle, and Gwen making a quick getaway after realizing what she did was sloppy, reckless, and if not careless, leaves the Vulture tied up for the police, and Ben Parker managing to help George Stacy out and gets him back to his place. Gwen pretty much sneaks into Peter's room and feels that this has been one bad day, ending the story. So issue 3 isn't too bad. I think what it's trying to do is show how Spider-Gwen's been a bit more sloppy after the Spider-Verse story, as well as dealing with the problems that have come forth. Again, the miniseries is meant to show how people are putting two to two together, but I think it does come off as a bit quick. So I still think the issue is still good and still alright. So I think it deserves a thumbs up. Still good and still alright. So, Comic Reviewer here, signing out.